Hello, everybody. Welcome to DevOps Decrypted. We're a reduced crew today. It's just Jobin and myself, Jon, because of Thanksgiving and illness and things. So you're stuck with just the two of us. We're going to be looking at a recent report and survey that we've put together at Adaptavist Group, based off the findings of the CrowdStrike incident back in the summer, and all of the problems that caused organizations all around the world. So yeah, welcome, Jobin.
Thank you, Jon. I think it's good to have at least Jon, the CTO, on the call to talk about nothing other than something as big as the CrowdStrike outage. I don't know. I mean, at Adaptavist, it feels like almost every time somebody is traveling. And I believe at this particular time, I just had to travel and I was actually on the other side of the Atlantic when this happened. And I was like, oh, I just escaped from this biggest outage. So it wasn't even clear what the outage was at the time because I was just in the middle of the travel. And I was not sure if I will be able to come back in time. And, it was all a messy situation, if I remember correctly.
It was a complete disaster. I was actually I was on holiday on the day that it happened, and so flying out the evening afterwards, and we were like, well, are we gonna make it? Is this gonna work? And then it was all fine in the end. But there were so many, like you turned up at the airport and it was like the apocalypse had happened there. There was like none of the systems were working, and the things there were people sleeping on the floor. It was horrendous. It certainly had a massive impact on travel.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that caught my attention was everybody in the big screen was talking about the blue screen and, how technology is impacting our world. And I was like, okay, at least for one time, I feel proud that I work in the technology space. And, hey, we can bring systems down if we really like. It was so funny. But yeah, I was talking to my family, my kids even, and telling them, hey, this is what happens, when an outage happens in the system. Because every time I tell my kids I'm doing something wonderful, they don't believe me. You're not sending rockets to the sky. That's what they say. But hey, we have technology people working behind that too, and see what happens when we don't work or when we get something wrong, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of like quick segue to this report. This was one of the things we wanted to understand really with that. There was so much of industry was affected when there was obviously travel was a big kind of headline things, and in the UK there was like whole TV stations that were taken out. So like Sky News was essentially off the air, had to kind of broadcast off emergency things, and so it kind of affected everything. So like first up, the kind of question. So bit of background on the survey. So we surveyed about 400 people across organizations which have got $10 million annual revenue across the UK, US, and Germany. So try to get a kind of spread of decent size organizations and sort of the things, and the kind of headline stat is that 87% of people who responded said that they were impacted by this CrowdStrike thing, which kind of gives you this scale of it's big. So that was a real kind of that's what we intuited of is like this. It's huge, and then of that, like 38% of them had a disruption which was more than 24 hours. Which I mean, I don't know if you got thoughts on that, Jobin, but to me, it's just like it is big.
It is huge. The funny thing is, when we talk about DevOps, a lot of the time people actually wonder what DevOps is, right? I mean, we talk about the technology, and there's too much to talk about technology. There is, too many keywords, too many technical jargons that we speak about when it comes to DevOps. So one thing I talk to when not just when I talk to customers, even internally with our business development teams, account managers, etc. Don't worry about all those technical jargons, but focus on what the business problem is, right? What is the actual problem that the customer is facing? Now, take this as a good example, right? Your environment is down for more than 24 hours. That's a huge problem. Imagine how many millions you are losing just by not being operational, right? So there is a business problem which can be solved by DevOps, right? So that's my key takeaway from it. Associate it with our day-to-day problems that we come across. If you don't realize the importance of DevOps, if you don't realize the importance of having a good operational system in place, then what are you doing? I mean, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they even organizations that are well prepared, I think you can still get caught out by something of this scale of things. It's like actually planning for something like this is it takes quite a lot of imagination and bravery to plan for too, to actually make those investments in those sort of events.
What you mentioned caught my attention, having that planning. It's interesting. In the survey, what came out was, there were a lot of people with those plans already in place, but only 16% of those people found them effective during the crisis. And 40% actually discovered their plans were inadequate for an accident of this scale. That's very eye-opening as well, because people think they already have got everything covered. We have adequate plans in place and things like that. But when a crisis like this comes, that's when actually people realize, oh, gosh, our plans were not adequate or something is not working. This actually happens quite a lot with blue-green deployments, for example. I mean, I'm sure you have probably come across people have blue-green deployments. Actually, blue-green deployments is a bad example. Disaster recovery plans in place, right? Nobody does it until the disaster happens. And then you suddenly realize, oh my God, my DR doesn't work anymore. So how do you actually plan ahead of time and make sure that, okay, our DR is fully functional? Maybe do a test run every month. Maybe do, make sure whenever you do an upgrade, make sure the DR is also updated, blah, blah, blah. So that's an interesting side of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you I mean exactly the phrase with this idea that if you've got backups and you don't test your restores, all you've got is hope. In that sense, you're like that's not a plan. And it's something that the teams at Adaptavist Group building software. One of the practices that we have is we call it game days, but it's about like coming up with a scenario where there is a disaster sort of thing there. You simulate it, you run it through as real as you possibly can through an incident process, and you go through, test all of those procedures and see where you're at, what can you learn from, and what you're trying to do is train people so they got the experience for going through and dealing with incidents and problems and things like that. But you also want to find holes in your procedures. So if you're following the things or holes in the systems that you've got, so it's got this kind of double edge like purpose for like actually improving your practices and your ability to serve your customers. But on that, one of the things that I came out with as a striking number is that there was 82% I had lacking incident response plans. Only 16% of them found it to be effective. Yet afterwards, 41% are now confident in their organization's ability to prevent and recover from a CrowdStrike-like incident. And I would love that level of confidence. It seems really hard.
I would even argue that that's probably not right. I mean, see, I'm pretty sure those 40% who later discovered that their plans were adequate, they were also confident prior to the outage. Right? I think it's Bill Gates who said, success is a lousy teacher. It's the failure that teaches us, everything. I think this outage taught us quite a lot. I'm curious how the people still think that, hey, we are now ready. Did they actually do something different? I mean, did they do something after the outage? Maybe improve their processes, maybe added more testing, whatever. I wonder if there is some cue to it in the report itself.
Yeah, well, that's what the optimist in me wants to think of, like, hey, what we have here is we've had this incident and there's been a huge investment into recovery and analyzing weak spots and single points of failure and other things. and that's why there's nearly half the people are now happy with think they can do better next time. But I wonder whether that is like false confidence and things. Well, and I guess it will. Time will tell until the next one, because I'm pretty sure that there will be something. I think as things get more and more complicated and more and more dependencies in systems, I think there's the chances of something like this happening again. I think they just go up.
I'm sure there will be other incidents like this in future. I mean, we are seeing these kind of incidents. The Log4j one, comes to mind. So there's a lot of these incidents that happens. But at the same time, there were a lot of positive transformational trends that emerged from this outage. That's what the report says. So if you look at the positive transformational trends that came out, 74% or more reporting positive outcomes across all the categories, which were in the report. For example, 81% have implemented more robust development practices. 80% report enhanced cybersecurity awareness among staff. I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, people are now more aware of, what can go wrong. And the more people are aware of it, they're well equipped to respond to any of these kind of things. So I think there are positive trends coming out of this.
So if I put my optimistic hat on and say, hey, all of that is definitely is the case, and actually there's got some solid there's some solid action that's in behind those things. I always wonder about like human factors and things, and I wonder if like the fact that it was such widespread and had such obvious impact, and I can imagine a whole load of like senior leadership would have been affected by that, the transport and the things. The number of people who are flying around the world and suddenly grounded because of a cybersecurity tool, like that raises the visibility of it, raises that in the conscious, and maybe it then becomes easier to build the business case for the investment in cybersecurity and training and those things. So actually having like the human factors in there, like this thing that my technical team have been telling me I have to fix for a long time. Now I see that's what they're talking about. It isn't some kind of fictional sort of things there. Like it means I can't board my flight, I can't get home, or I can't get on vacation. So
it's not a technical debt anymore. It's real. It's something that you can actually feel. It's a tangible thing. So I think that, yeah, absolutely. But what's also interesting is, complete overhaul of development practices, 35% increasing focus on redundancy systems, 33% have transferred their software update process entirely, which is very striking. I mean, it's a transformation of all sorts, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of that. And so one of the things I hope hasn't happened actually in that sort of update policy is that teams have become less willing to update. Because so this is my big worry as a reaction from organizations is that we become less keen to do the necessary security updates, the things we don't get rid of the 0-day problems, that we're not patching quickly enough, and so I think I hope that those changes are to have safer practices around those updates rather than to delay or to put a lot of red tape in behind those things, because I can imagine an immediate kind of naive reaction is to go, right, we're not updating anything ever anymore. It works, don't touch it. Which is equally unsafe.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree. But again, whenever you talk about transformation, usually it's a bigger thing, especially if you're overhauling the entire software development process. That itself is a huge thing that can take, in some cases months, in some cases years. So we are not talking about something that is as simple as, yes, we are going to, upgrade the version of the software to the next, major version or the next stable version. It's if we are overhauling the entire software development process, that's a big project in itself.
Yeah, it's huge, which makes me slightly skeptical about the numbers here of that things, because how many teams have managed to overhaul the entirety of their software development process in 6 months, which is the sort of the time frame that we're talking about here. So
exactly, which brings back that point about your false confidence that you're talking about earlier. Yes, now 40%. What's the number? People feel more confident about in case if such an outage happens again, they're confident about tackling it. But yeah, could be a false hope.
Yeah.
What can you really do in 6 months' time, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think let's put our optimist hats on and say, like, there has been some really meaningful change off the back, which I really hope there is. Because it's something that I think a lot of us have been commenting on and saying we need. When it's the reason why we're sort of emotionally invested in the sort of DevOps movement, right? Because we can see better.
I am the head of DevOps for a reason. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. But hopefully, these kind of events actually open the eyes of those who are skeptical. As you said, the people on the ground, they always know, right? They know that there's a change that's required. They know that some of our practices needs to be better. But sometimes it's very difficult to get that buy-in from the senior stakeholders. Which is something that we always try to do when we speak to customers, right? Always bring in that senior stakeholder who can sponsor the transformational engagement. That is very key. I think we talked quite a lot about it in our last podcast to BetaNets, when BetaNets, our customer, came on board and talked about their transformational success story. That buy-in from the senior stakeholders is so important. Unless we get that, I think these kind of outages play a part in teaching them, yes, this is real.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that this survey kind of found was there was the vast majority of were planning on increasing investments in cybersecurity training, in incident response, and also in hiring and long-term hiring plans in IT software development and DevOps engineering and things. And I think that paints a really good picture for the future and the things. And I was thinking as well that if you're like professional working in this area and you really want to put together a good case to work on the resiliency, you see that there's a problem. I think using this as a case study, like the CrowdStrike incident and things, I think really, it's got a lot of emotional involvement attached to it and things, and it's really tangible. So I think a piece of advice would be reference it in a business case, use it as part of your narrative to say, this is if we don't invest here, this sort of thing can happen.
Exactly. And again, you mentioned about that long-term planning of, hiring more people. And the spread was actually interesting to me because, talking about 36% of hiring in quality assurance areas, 34% in IT operations, 32% in software developers. I never thought, companies were in shortage of software developers, but here we go. And 31% in DevOps engineers, which made sense to me. Absolutely, 31% at least, in hiring new DevOps engineers because your DevOps processes needs to be better. Makes sense. But that increase in software developers and testers, that kind of surprised me because I always thought, companies were already hiring enough developers and testing was now became the norm rather than the exception, right?
Yeah. Thanks. All right, so let's wrap up talking about this and thing. But sorry, I'll share my biggest takeaway, and then Jobin, what's the thing that you noticed? So the thing that really was striking out of this survey is the meaningful change that appears to have happened as a result of thing, which I think is a really sort of finding the positives in such when it was such a big difficult situation that a lot of organizations found themselves in. But if we as an industry are in a better position as a result of it, I think that's got to be a good thing. Not wishing for anything. No, we're not wishing for a repeat, of course. But I think actually when I like taking on those principles of looking at a bad thing happening, a disaster, and then learning from it and improving. I think that's a hugely positive story that we can see in what we found in this survey and report.
Yeah, I mean, I would actually quote something from the report itself. It's very clear that building true resilience will require us to address deeper cultural and structural changes, right? Again, it touches all the cornerstones that DevOps teams talk about. It's not always a tool itself, the people, the process, the tools. We need to take into account all of those factors and make sure that we have a complete resilient system in place. So the next time when something like this happens, at least, we can fail fast and come back quickly, up and running. We don't have to wait for 24 hours. That's a day. I don't want to miss a day. I can miss a day. I mean, I don't even want to miss an hour. We have the time change here in the US and of course UK. Missing that 1 hour pains me. So missing 24 hours, no thanks. I think some things are happening in our world too. So at Adaptavist, we are going to the next big event, AWS reInvent. It looks like we have folks from across the Adaptavist group going for reInvent, leveraging our partnership with AWS as well as other strategic partners like Atlassian and GitLab. So if anybody in the listeners going to reInvent, I don't think the episode will be out by then, but at least we'll have some good marketing content for you after the event itself.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you there. That's always
I don't. Exactly. It was nice to meet you there. But hey, look out for our marketing blogs or stuff. But there's a lot of exciting meetings that we have planned with our partners, Atlassian, AWS, and GitLab. And I think we have lightning talks happening in the Atlassian booth, for example. One of my DevOps team lead is doing that, Jason Spix. So yeah, a lot of exciting things happening there. Another thing was we were at KubeCon last week, so a lot of positive takeaways from there. We were at the Gartner event in Barcelona end of last month. I think the transformational aspect is now the biggest talking point. Obviously, there are things like platform engineering, developer experience, all supporting that. But at the same time, every organization, as far as I can see, undergoing a transformational change. And even this report points to that same fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that transformation. I mean, it's one of the like you'd think of like the Gartner events are being sort of like less DevOpsy and those sort of things, but that transformational mindset is absolutely there, and seeking to improve and things which you see that's throughout the DevOps culture of all of the various DevOps events that we end up at.
All right, folks, there it is, short and sweet. It's just the two of us, so we made it very easy for you. Hopefully you learned a lot of things from this, but this was the DevOps Decrypted podcast, part of the Adaptavist podcast series, and hopefully we'll see you in reInvent. Oh, we have seen you at reInvent, I hope, by the time we are out there. But if you have, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, send it to DevOps Decrypted at adaptavist.com. Thanks, everybody.